Section 1. Hey guys, tonight we slip into the golden fields of ancient Greece, where Demeter, goddess of harvests, tends her endless rows of wheat under a sky so blue it feels like a promise. Picture her standing tall, her hands brushing through ripe stalks, the air heavy with the scent of warm earth and blooming wildflowers. Her daughter, Persephone, laughs nearby, weaving daisies into her hair, her voice carrying like a soft breeze. It's a scene so serene you'd think it could last forever, but, spoiler alert, forever isn't on the menu in Greek myths. You probably wouldn't survive a day in Demeter's world, where divine power comes with cosmic family drama and zero chill. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with your city and local time. I'd love to know where you're drifting off from tonight. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Demeter's life in these early days is all about abundance. She's the goddess who makes the earth yield its riches. Think golden barley, plump olives, and figs so sweet they'd make your modern smoothie bowl jealous. The Greeks believed she taught humans to farm, a mainstream fact etched into their stories, showing how she turned wild plains into neat fields. Every spring, she walks barefoot through the soil, her presence coaxing seeds to sprout. You can almost smell the damp loam and hear the rustle of leaves as she passes. Her connection to the earth isn't just a job, it's her essence, like she's woven from the roots and vines she nurtures. The mortals below offer her honey cakes and woven baskets, their prayers rising like smoke to keep her favor. Without her, their crops wither and their tables stay empty. But there's a quirky detail the myths whisper about. Demeter doesn't just grow crops. She's got a thing for poppies. Some tales say she scattered their red petals across fields to mark her favorite places, a kind of divine graffiti that made farmers scratch their heads. Why poppies? Maybe their sleepy charm was her way of hinting at rest in a world that never stops growing. Historians still argue whether these poppies symbolized her nurturing side or something deeper, like a nod to dreams and escape from her endless duties. Whatever the reason, imagine her pausing to tuck a poppy behind her ear, her fingers dusted with pollen, her smile soft but distant. Her daughter, Persephone, is her shadow and her light. The two are inseparable, wandering the meadows of Sicily, where the sun paints everything in hues of amber and green. Persephone's laughter is the melody to Demeter's steady hum of work. You can picture them sitting under an olive tree, sharing a handful of almonds, the kind of moment that feels too perfect to last. And it is. The myths don't let happiness linger too long, do they? Demeter's world is peaceful, but there's a tension in the air, like the earth itself knows something's coming. The fields stretch out, endless and golden, but beneath them, something stirs. A shadow, a crack, a whisper of trouble that even a goddess can't sense yet. This is Demeter's domain. A place where time feels slow, where seasons don't yet shift in the dramatic way we know them. The Greeks didn't have our calendar. Their world was tied to cycles of planting and harvest, all under Demeter's watchful eye. She's not just a farmer with divine powers, she's the pulse of life itself, the reason bread lands on tables and wine fills cups. But even goddesses have blind spots. As she walks her fields, checking the weight of grain heads, she doesn't see the underworld's gaze fixed on her daughter. You can almost hear the faint rumble below, like a bad joke the earth's about to tell. For now, though, it's just Demeter, her fields, and the quiet hum of a world in balance. Until it isn't. Section 2. The meadows of Sicily stretch before Persephone like a canvas of green and gold, dotted with wildflowers that sway in the warm breeze. She's out there today, her bare feet sinking into soft grass, her linen chiton catching the sunlight as she moves. Demeter's daughter is a vision of youth, her hair loose and tangled with daisies she's plucked from the field. You can almost hear her humming, a tune as light as the air, as she gathers blooms, violets, crocuses, maybe a few of those poppies her mother loves. The sky above is endless, the kind of blue that makes you forget trouble exists. But trouble, as the myths love to remind us, is never far off. Persephone's joy is a fragile thing, like a flower pressed between pages, beautiful but doomed to fade. She's not alone in the meadow, though it feels that way. Nymphs linger nearby, their laughter soft as they weave through the tall grasses, but they're more like background music than company. Persephone's focused on her task, piling flowers into a basket, her fingers stained with pollen. The Greeks saw her as the embodiment of spring, a mainstream fact tied to her role as core, the maiden, whose presence made the earth bloom. Her every step seems to coax new petals from the soil, as if the ground itself wants to please her. You can imagine the scent of crushed herbs underfoot, the faint buzz of bees, the warmth of the sun on her shoulders. It's a moment so perfect, it feels like a painting. But here's a quirky tidbit the myths don't shout about. Persephone's flower picking wasn't just a hobby. Some stories suggest she was gathering specific blooms for rituals, maybe offerings for her mother's altars. Violets, in particular, were said to be sacred to Demeter, a little detail that makes you wonder if Persephone was out there collecting them to honor her mom. Historians still argue whether this was a daily chore or a symbolic act, a way to tie her to the earth's cycles before everything changed. Either way, her basket grows heavy, and she's lost in the rhythm of it. Pluck, twist, drop, repeat. The meadow feels safe, endless, like a place where nothing bad could happen. But the earth has secrets, and not the kind that bloom. Beneath the grass, the underworld waits, its king already watching. Hades, lord of the dead, has his eyes on Persephone, and the myths don't sugarcoat his obsession. You can almost feel the ground shift slightly, a faint tremor Persephone doesn't notice. She's too busy laughing, tossing a flower at a nymph, maybe joking about how her mother would scold her for picking too many. The air is warm, but there's a chill in the shadows, a hint of something darker that doesn't belong in this golden scene. Persephone doesn't know it yet, but her carefree gathering is the last moment of innocence she'll have for a while. The myths paint this as the calm before the storm, a snapshot of joy before the earth cracks open. You can picture her pausing to tie her hair back, her fingers brushing a stray petal from her cheek, oblivious to the chariot waiting below. It's the kind of moment where you want to yell, "Turn around, girl." But myths don't work that way. They're built on inevitability, like a bad punchline you see coming, but can't avoid. For now, though, Persephone is free, her basket overflowing, her heart light. and the meadow is hers, until it isn't. Section 3. The meadow hums with life as Persephone bends to pick another flower, her fingers brushing the petals of a narcissus that gleams like a tiny sun. She's lost in the moment, the world around her a blur of colors and scents, when suddenly the ground trembles. It's subtle at first, like a distant thunder rolling in from the sea, but then it grows, shaking the grass beneath her feet. The nymphs scatter, their laughter turning to gasps, as a fissure cracks open in the earth with a sound like tearing fabric. Out bursts Hades, lord of the underworld, in a chariot drawn by black horses whose hooves spark against the soil. His face is stern, shadowed by a helmet that makes him blend with the darkness, and his eyes lock on Persephone with an intensity that chills the air. Hades doesn't hesitate. He leaps from the chariot, his cloak billowing like smoke, and sweeps Persephone into his arms before she can even drop her basket. Flowers scatter everywhere, violets tumbling, crocuses crushed underfoot, as she struggles, her cries echoing across the meadow. The mainstream fact here is that Greek myths often portrayed Hades as a reluctant king, not a villain, but a god bound by his realm's isolation, making this abduction less about malice and more about divine loneliness. Still, it's dramatic, isn't it? Like the underworld's version of a bad blind date, where instead of coffee, you get eternal shadows. Persephone's arms flail, her feet kicking against the chariot's edge. But Hades is strong, his grip unyielding as he reins in the horses. The chariot plunges back into the chasm, the earth swallowing them whole with a rumble that seals the fissure behind them. Darkness envelops Persephone instantly, the warm sunlight replaced by a cold, echoing void. She can feel the rush of wind as they descend, the horses' manes whipping like flames in the gloom. Hades says little, perhaps muttering something about destiny or Zeus's approval. After all, the king of gods had given his nod to this union, a quirky tidbit from the myths where family dynamics get weirdly complicated, like uncles arranging marriages without asking the bride. Scholars still debate whether this reflects ancient views on arranged unions or a deeper allegory for death's inevitability, with no clear consensus on Hades' motives beyond power and desire. Persephone's heart races, the scent of earth and decay filling her nostrils as they plummet deeper. The underworld unfolds around her in glimpses, rivers of shadow, ghostly figures drifting like mist, the faint glow of minerals in the cavern walls. It's not the fiery hell of later tales, but a somber place, quiet and vast, where echoes linger longer than light. Hades steers the chariot with one hand, his other arm firm around her waist, as if fearing she'll vanish like a dream. Persephone calls out for her mother, her voice bouncing off the stone. But the surface world is already far above, the meadow's flowers trampled and forgotten. As they reach the heart of the underworld, the chariot slows, and Hades helps Persephone down with an almost gentle touch, his expression softening in the dim light of his palace. The halls are grand, carved from obsidian and adorned with jewels that sparkle like trapped stars. But there's a loneliness to it all, a silence broken only by the distant trickle of the river Styx. Persephone stands there, her chiton dirtied, her hair disheveled, staring at this new realm that's both beautiful and barren. Hades offers her a throne beside his, speaking of how she'll be queen, ruling over the dead with him. But her mind is on the sunlight she left behind, the flowers still clutched in her fist, now wilting in the cool air. The abduction is swift in the telling, but in the myths, it's a pivot point, a joke the gods play on mortals and each other. Imagine Persephone thinking, well, this beats flower picking, but not by much, as the chariot rattles on. Hades, for his part, seems almost apologetic, his voice low and rumbling like distant thunder, explaining that love struck him like one of Eros's arrows. Though, let's be real, it's more like a cosmic kidnapping with a side of awkward romance. The underworld's gates close behind them, sealing her fate for now, while above, the meadow falls silent, the nymphs whispering in fear, unaware that this act will change the world forever. Persephone explores her surroundings tentatively, her steps echoing in the vast chambers. Pomegranates grow in eerie gardens here, their red skins glowing faintly, a fringe detail some stories link to forbidden knowledge, like nature's own Pandora's box. Hades watches her, his dark eyes reflecting a mix of triumph and regret, knowing Zeus's blessing came with strings. The air down here is still, scented with minerals and faint echoes of forgotten lives, a far cry from the breezy meadows. Persephone's cries have faded to quiet sobs, her thoughts turning to Demeter, wondering if her mother felt the earth's shudder. This descent marks the beginning of Persephone's dual life. But for now, it's all shock and shadow. Hades tries to comfort her with tales of the underworld's wonders, the Elysian fields where heroes rest, the asphodel meadows blooming with pale flowers. But she turns away, clutching her wilted blooms like a lifeline. The myths don't rush this moment. They let it linger, building the tension for what's to come. And up above, the first hints of unease stir, though Demeter hasn't yet realized the full horror. The chariot stands empty now, the horses snorting in the gloom, as Hades leads Persephone deeper into her new home, the weight of his decision hanging like the cavern's ceiling. Thought for 15s, Section 4. The sun dips lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the meadows where Persephone last laughed. But Demeter feels a sudden chill that has nothing to do with the evening breeze. She's been tending to a distant field, her hands deep in the soil, coaxing wheat stalks to stand taller, when an inexplicable unease settles over her like a fog rolling in from the sea. The air feels heavier, the birds' songs muted, as if the earth itself is holding its breath. Demeter straightens, wiping dirt from her palms, her brow furrowing in confusion. Where is Persephone? The question starts as a whisper in her mind, but it grows, insistent, like a seed pushing through stone. She calls out her daughter's name, her voice echoing across the empty plains, but only silence answers, broken by the rustle of wind through the grass. This isn't like Persephone to wander off without a word, especially not when the day's light is fading. Demeter's heart quickens, a goddess's intuition sharper than any mortal's, telling her something is terribly wrong. The mainstream fact in the myths is that Demeter's bond with her daughter was unbreakable, symbolizing the earth's fertility tied to their unity. So this separation hits like a drought on parched land. She begins to pace, her feet leaving faint impressions in the soil, her eyes scanning the horizon for any sign. A flash of Persephone's chiton, a trail of scattered flowers. Nothing. The meadow looks peaceful, almost mocking in its serenity, with violets still nodding in the breeze, as if nothing happened. Demeter turns to the nymphs first, the woodland spirits who were Persephone's companions in the meadow. She finds them huddled near a stream, their faces pale, their voices trembling as she approaches. "Where is my daughter?" she demands, her tone steady but edged with worry, like a mother who's misplaced her child in a crowded market. Except this market is the entire world. The nymphs exchange glances. One of them, perhaps Arethusa, stepping forward with hesitant words. They saw the ground open, they say, a dark chariot emerging like a nightmare from the depths. Hades himself at the reins, but fear paralyzed them. They hid in the reeds, their watery forms blending with the stream to escape notice. Demeter's eyes widen, her hands clenching into fists. How could they not intervene? A quirky tidbit from lesser-known variants of the myth suggests some nymphs tried to grab Persephone's hem, their fingers turning to mist in the chaos, a futile gesture that left them weeping dew into the grass. Scholars still argue whether the nymph's inaction reflects ancient Greek views on fate's inevitability, or a commentary on the powerlessness of minor deities against the Olympian elite, with no definitive answer in the fragmented texts. Demeter presses them for details: the color of the horses, black as midnight, the rumble of the chariot wheels, like thunder underground, Persephone's cries, fading as the earth sealed shut. Each word fuels her growing dread, turning unease into a storm brewing inside her. She thanks them curtly, though gratitude feels hollow, and turns away, her mind racing. Hades. Why would the Lord of the Dead take her child? The underworld is no place for a maiden of spring. Its shadows a stark contrast to the sunlit fields Persephone loved. As night falls, Demeter's search intensifies. She roams the meadows under starlight. Her torch, crafted from pine branches, lit by her own divine fire, casting flickering glows on the ground. The flame dances, illuminating trampled flowers and a faint crack in the earth, now healed as if it never was. She kneels, pressing her ear to the soil, listening for any echo from below, but only the faint hum of roots growing answers. It's maddening, this silence, like the gods are playing a cruel joke on her, the kind where the punchline is heartbreak. Demeter stands, her robe dusted with earth, and vows not to rest until she finds answers. The nymphs watch from afar, their whispers carrying on the wind, regretting their cowardice, but knowing it changes nothing. Her unease morphs into quiet determination, a mother's resolve that could move mountains, or in this case, shake the very foundations of Olympus. She questions more witnesses, birds perched on branches who saw the chariot vanish, shepherds in nearby hills who felt the tremor but dismissed it as an earthquake. Each account adds pieces to the puzzle, but none bring Persephone back. Demeter's steps grow heavier, her torch burning brighter against the darkness, as she realizes this isn't a simple mishap. It's a theft, a violation of the natural order she guards so fiercely. The myths don't rush her grief. They let it build slowly, like clouds gathering before a rain that will flood the world. In the quiet hours before dawn, Demeter pauses by a sacred grove, her mind replaying Persephone's laughter, now a ghost in the wind. She plucks a wilted violet from the ground, holding it close, its petals crumbling in her fingers. This flower, once vibrant under her daughter's touch, now mirrors her growing despair. The earth feels different without Persephone, less alive, as if it's mourning too. Demeter whispers a prayer to Gaia, the primordial mother, asking for guidance, but the response is only the rustle of leaves. Her unease is a seed planted deep, ready to sprout into something world-altering. For now, she continues, torch in hand, questioning anyone and anything that might hold a clue. The nymphs' tales haunt her, their descriptions vivid yet incomplete. One mentions a golden narcissus that lured Persephone closer to the spot where the ground split, a flower planted by Zeus himself, some fringe stories claim, to aid Hades' plan. Demeter's anger simmers at the thought of betrayal from her own brother, but she pushes it down, focusing on the search. The morning light creeps in, painting the sky pink, but it brings no comfort. Demeter's feet ache from wandering, her voice hoarse from calling, yet she presses on. The world above remains oblivious, crops still swaying, but inside her, a void opens wider than the chasm that took her daughter. This phase of unease is the myth's quiet turning point, where a goddess's personal loss begins to ripple outward. Demeter's questions to the nymphs yield fragments, the horse's wild eyes, Hades' unyielding grasp, Persephone's final plea echoing upward. It's enough to confirm the horror, but not enough to act. She gathers her strength, knowing the path ahead will be long. Her growing unease, a companion that won't leave until Persephone returns. The meadows, once joyful, now feel empty, a stage missing its star. Section 5. Demeter's torch burns low now, its flames flickering as she trudges across the endless plains, her sandals worn thin from days of wandering. The meadows of Sicily, once vibrant under her touch, feel hollow without Persephone's laughter to fill them. She moves from village to village, hill to hill, her eyes scanning every shadow, every patch of disturbed earth, hoping for a sign, a dropped flower, a scrap of Persephone's chiton, anything. The air grows colder as days turn to weeks, the sun less generous, mirroring the ache in her chest. Her voice, hoarse from calling her daughter's name, carries over windswept fields, but the only reply is the rustle of leaves or the distant bleat of a goat. The world feels vast, too vast, and Demeter, a goddess who commands the harvest, feels powerless, like a farmer facing a frost she can't stop. The mainstream fact in the myths is that Demeter's search was relentless, a divine quest that spanned the earth, showing her as a mother first, goddess second. She doesn't rest, doesn't eat ambrosia, doesn't pause to tend her sacred fields. Her grief drives her forward, each step a refusal to accept the silence. You can picture her standing on a cliff, her hair tangled by the sea breeze, staring out at the horizon as if Persephone might appear there, waving. The earth itself seems to mourn with her. Flowers droop slightly, grass yellows at the edges, as if sensing her absence from her usual duties. It's a slow unraveling, like a tapestry losing its threads, and Demeter feels every snag. A quirky tidbit from lesser-known versions of the myth suggests she spoke to animals during her wanderings, asking deer and birds if they'd seen her daughter. Imagine a goddess whispering to a sparrow, "Did you see a girl with flowers in her hair?" Only to get a blank stare and a flutter of wings. It's almost funny, in that sad way, like asking your cat where your keys are. Scholars still argue whether these animal conversations symbolize her desperation or reflect ancient beliefs in nature's omniscience, with no clear answer in the surviving texts. Either way, the animals offer no clues, and Demeter's path grows more aimless, her torch a lonely beacon in the night. She crosses rivers, their waters glinting under moonlight, and climbs mountains where the air thins and her breath catches. The mortals she passes, farmers, shepherds, see only a weary woman, not the goddess who makes their crops grow. Her divine glow is dimmed by sorrow, her robes dusted with earth, making her look more like a traveler than a deity. She questions them too, her voice soft but urgent. Have you seen a maiden with eyes like spring carrying a basket of blooms? They shake their heads, offering bread or wine, which she refuses. Food means nothing when her daughter is gone, and the myths linger on this, painting her hunger as a mirror to the land's coming barrenness. The nights are the hardest. Demeter sits by her torch, its light casting shadows that dance like ghosts. She replays the nymph's words, Hades, chariot, the earth's sudden split, and feels a spark of anger beneath her grief. Why would the underworld claim her daughter? Was it Zeus, her brother, meddling again? The thought stings, like a bad joke from a family reunion you didn't want to attend. She clutches a wilted violet, one of Persephone's favorites, its petals crumbling in her hand. The myths don't rush her pain. They let it unfold slowly, each step a reminder of what's lost. The stars above seem indifferent, their light cold compared to the warmth of her daughter's smile. Demeter's wanderings take her through unfamiliar lands, past olive groves where the fruit hangs heavy, through valleys where streams whisper secrets she can't decipher. She avoids Olympus, its golden halls too full of gods who might know more than they're saying. Instead, she seeks out the earth's edges, places where mortals and spirits meet, hoping for whispers of Persephone. A goatherd mentions a strange tremor days ago, a crack in a nearby field now gone. A fisherman speaks of a shadow moving beneath the waves, too swift to be a fish. These fragments fuel her, but they're not enough. Like trying to piece together a mosaic with half the tiles missing. Her despair deepens with each empty trail, but Demeter doesn't waver. She lights a new torch when the old one dies, her divine strength keeping her moving where a mortal would collapse. The earth feels her pain. Crops grow sluggishly, vines twist inward, as if mirroring her inward spiral. It's not yet a famine, but the signs are there, a subtle warning to the gods above and below. Demeter's love for Persephone is a force as vast as the fields she tends, and her search is only beginning. You can almost hear her muttering, "I'll find you, even if I have to dig through the underworld myself," a vow that's half prayer, half threat. The myths let her resolve simmer, setting the stage for a goddess who'll shake the heavens. As dawn breaks, painting the sky in soft pinks, Demeter pauses by a sacred oak, its branches heavy with acorns. She leans against it, her torch sputtering, and closes her eyes, imagining Persephone's laughter. The memory is sharp, cutting through the fog of her grief. She doesn't know where to go next, but stopping isn't an option. The earth is wide, the underworld deep, and somewhere her daughter waits. Demeter adjusts her cloak, picks up her torch, and steps forward, her shadow long and unwavering. The world above continues, unaware of the storm brewing in her heart, a storm that will soon touch every field and mortal hearth. Section 6. Demeter's sandals are caked with dust as she trudges on, her torch long since extinguished, replaced by the faint glow of her divine presence. The world feels heavier now, each step through unfamiliar lands, a reminder of Persephone's absence. She can no longer bear to linger in the meadows where her daughter once danced, so she veils herself in mortal guise, her radiant form dulled to that of an old woman, her hair streaked with grey, her robes tattered at the hem. This disguise lets her slip among humans unnoticed, a goddess hiding in plain sight, her eyes sharp with purpose as she seeks any whisper of her lost child. You can picture her, hunched slightly, leaning on a gnarled staff, moving through dusty village paths where mortals go about their lives, oblivious to the divine sorrow in their midst. The mainstream fact here is that Demeter's mortal disguise in the myths reflects her willingness to humble herself, a goddess stepping into human fragility to search for Persephone, showing her maternal devotion outweighs her divine pride. She chooses this form not for trickery, but for access, blending into markets and hearths where secrets might spill. Her steps are slow, deliberate, as she listens to the chatter of bakers kneading dough, weavers at their looms, children playing in the dirt. The air smells of warm bread and wood smoke, but it's the absence of Persephone's floral scent that gnaws at her. She asks cautious questions. Have you seen a maiden with a basket of flowers? Her voice cracked like dry earth, masking the power beneath. A quirky tidbit from obscure retellings suggests Demeter once bartered with a village herbalist, offering a handful of sacred wheat seeds for news of Persephone, only to learn the woman knew nothing but tried to sell her a love potion instead. Imagine Demeter's face, a goddess stifling a laugh at the mortal's audacity, like someone trying to upsell you at a gas station. Scholars still argue whether this disguise was purely strategic or a way for Demeter to process her grief by living among mortals, with no clear consensus in the fragmented tales. Either way, it's a shift. She's no longer commanding fields, but navigating human spaces, her divine heart heavy under mortal weight. She stops at a well in one village, her hands trembling as she draws water, not for thirst, but to keep up appearances. The women there, balancing clay jars on their hips, eye her curiously, a stranger with no clear origin. One offers her a sip of wine, mistaking her for a weary traveler, and Demeter accepts, though the taste is bitter compared to Olympian nectar. She listens to their gossip, a strange shadow seen in a nearby grove, a girl's cry carried on the wind. These scraps of rumor are maddeningly vague, like trying to solve a puzzle with pieces from the wrong box. Demeter nods, her face calm, but inside, her grief churns like a storm gathering over the sea. The nights are lonelier now. She finds shelter in barns or under trees, curling up on straw or moss, her mortal form aching in ways her divine one never did. The stars above mock her with their distance, reminding her of Olympus, where Zeus and the others sit unbothered. She imagines confronting her brother, demanding answers, but for now she's earthbound, her search rooted in the mortal world. It's a humbling shift, like a CEO working the night shift at a diner, and just as jarring. Her disguise lets her overhear whispers, tales of a dark chariot, a maiden vanishing, but nothing solid, nothing that points to the underworld's gates. Demeter's resolve hardens with each dead end. She visits shrines dedicated to herself, where mortals leave offerings of barley and figs, unaware the goddess they pray to stands among them. She touches the offerings, feeling their warmth, but they bring no comfort. Her thoughts linger on Persephone's laughter, now a memory as faint as the scent of crushed violets. The myths let this phase stretch, emphasizing her endurance, her refusal to give up despite the silence. She moves on, her staff tapping the ground, her eyes scanning every face, every field, for a trace of her daughter. In one village, a child hands her a woven reed doll, mistaking her for a grandmother. Demeter clutches it, her fingers tracing the rough strands, a fleeting reminder of Persephone's childhood crafts. The gesture stings, but she thanks the child, tucking the doll into her cloak. It's a small thing, but it anchors her, a tether to the world she's fighting for. The myths don't dwell on these moments, but they're there, quiet beats of humanity in a divine struggle. Demeter's disguise is imperfect. Her eyes betray a depth no mortal could carry, but it keeps her moving, a shadow among shadows, searching for the light of her daughter. As dawn breaks, painting the hills gold, Demeter pauses by a stream, splashing water on her face to maintain the act. The cold stings, grounding her in this mortal shell. She overhears a farmer mention a strange flower, a narcissus that bloomed where none should, near a crack in the earth now gone. Her heart leaps, but she keeps her face still, like a poker player hiding a winning hand. It's the closest lead yet, but it's not enough. She presses on, her mortal guise a weight she bears for Persephone, knowing each step brings her closer to answers, or deeper into despair. Section 7. Demeter's mortal guise clings to her like damp linen as she approaches Eleusis, a small coastal town where the sea whispers against rocky cliffs and the air smells of salt and olive wood. Her staff taps the dusty path, her grey hair tucked under a worn shawl, hiding the goddess who could make fields bloom with a glance. She's weary from weeks of wandering, her heart heavy with the silence of dead-end trails. But Eleusis feels different, a quiet hum in the air, like the earth knows she's close to something. The town bustles with mortals, fishermen mending nets, women carrying baskets of figs, children chasing each other through narrow streets. Demeter blends in, her steps slow, her eyes sharp, searching for any hint of Persephone's presence in this human world. The mainstream fact in the myths is that Eleusis becomes a sacred site because of Demeter's visit, marking the town as the heart of her mysteries, a place where her grief and power intertwine. She arrives at the palace of King Celeus, a modest but sturdy structure of stone and timber, its courtyard alive with the scent of roasting barley. Queen Metanira, the king's wife, spots her at the gates, a frail old woman leaning on a staff, and takes pity. "Come, grandmother, rest by our hearth," she says, her voice warm, unaware she's addressing a goddess. Demeter nods, her face etched with lines of sorrow that make her disguise convincing, and follows Metanira inside, where the air is thick with the smell of bread and wool. Metanira offers her a seat and a cup of barley water, flavored with mint, a quirky detail in some myths, where this drink, called kikeon, becomes a ritual offering in Demeter's honor. Imagine Demeter sipping it, her divine lips curling slightly at the mortal attempt to comfort her, like being offered instant coffee at a divine banquet. Scholars still argue whether this moment reflects a genuine cultural practice or a symbolic nod to hospitality in ancient Greece, with no clear answer in the texts. Demeter accepts the role of nursemaid to Metanira's infant son, Demephone, seeing a chance to stay close to human whispers that might lead to Persephone. The queen, grateful, hands her the swaddled boy, his tiny fists waving like he's already fighting the world. Demeter cradles Demephone, her hands gentle but her mind elsewhere, replaying the nymph's tales of Hades' chariot and the earth's betrayal. The palace is a welcome change from barns and groves, its walls hung with woven tapestries, its floors swept clean by servants. She sits by the fire, rocking the child, her mortal form masking the power that could make the earth quake. The myths paint this as a moment of quiet deception. Demeter isn't here to play nanny forever. She's biding her time, listening for rumors. Servants gossip about a strange tremor weeks ago, a girl seen near a field before it went silent. Demeter's heart quickens, but she keeps her face still, like a chess player hiding her next move. At night, the palace grows quiet, the only sounds the crackle of the hearth and Demophoon's soft breathing. Demeter watches him sleep, his tiny chest rising and falling, and feels a pang of longing for Persephone's childhood, when she too was small enough to hold. The memory is sharp, like biting into a sour fruit, and it fuels her resolve. She begins to care for the boy, feeding him milk and honey, singing soft lullabies in a voice that carries the weight of harvests. The myths don't linger on these tender moments, but they're there, grounding Demeter's divine mission in human warmth. She asks Metanira about local shrines, hoping someone has seen a sign, a flower out of place, a shadow too dark for daylight. The queen, kind but busy, notices Demeter's quiet strength, the way her eyes seem to see beyond the room. "You're no ordinary traveler," Metanira says one evening, half joking, as if sensing the divine beneath the disguise. Demeter smiles faintly, deflecting with a story about a lost home, her words vague but convincing. It's a performance, like a goddess auditioning for a mortal role, and she plays it well. The palace becomes her temporary refuge, a place to gather strength and clues. She overhears a servant mention a sacred well where strange blooms appeared recently, and her pulse quickens. Could it be a trace of Persephone's flowers? Demeter's time in Eleusis is a delicate balance, caring for Demophone while probing for answers. She walks the town's edges at dawn, her staff tracing paths through dusty streets, her eyes scanning for anything out of place. The sea glints nearby, its waves carrying no secrets, only salt. The myths let her linger here, building tension as her search stalls, but her resolve grows. She's a goddess in hiding, her power simmering beneath mortal fragility, ready to erupt when the time comes. For now, she rocks Demophone, her fingers brushing his soft hair, and whispers Persephone's name into the night, a prayer the earth might answer. Section 8. The palace at Eleusis settles into quiet as night falls, the hearth's embers glowing softly in the chamber where Demeter watches over Demophone. The infant sleeps soundly in his cradle, his tiny breath steady like the rhythm of waves on the nearby shore. Metanira and the household have retired, leaving Demeter alone with the boy, her mortal disguise still in place, her eyes reflecting the fire's flicker. This is her time, a secret hour when she can shed the weight of her search and channel her divine power into something hopeful. She lifts Demeter gently, his warmth a faint echo of Persephone's embrace, and begins the ritual she's planned since arriving, a bid to grant him immortality, to make one mortal child eternal in a world that's taken her own. The mainstream fact in the myths is that Demeter's attempt to immortalize Demeter stems from her grief, a way to pour her nurturing essence into a surrogate while mourning Persephone, blending her roles as mother and goddess. She starts by anointing him with ambrosia, the golden nectar of the gods, rubbing it into his soft skin with careful strokes. The substance shimmers faintly in the firelight, its scent like honeyed sunlight, filling the room with a sweetness that masks the palace's earthy smells. Demeter stirs but doesn't wake, his body absorbing the divine essence as Demeter whispers ancient words, incantations drawn from the depths of her power, invoking the eternal cycles of growth and renewal. A quirky tidbit from variant tales suggests Demeter mixed the ambrosia with a drop of her own tears, believing sorrow could temper immortality, making it more resilient, like forging steel in fire, but with a goddess's heartache. Imagine her dabbing the mixture on his forehead, his cheeks, his tiny feet, each touch a blend of love and desperation, as if saving this boy might somehow mend the void left by Persephone. Scholars still argue whether this ritual was inspired by real ancient Greek practices of child dedication, or a symbolic critique of mortals meddling with divine gifts, with ongoing debates in classical studies. Either way, the anointing is precise, her fingers tracing patterns that glow briefly before fading, imbuing Demeter with a spark of the immortal. With the anointing complete, Demeter moves to the hearth, the fire crackling low, its flames dancing like eager spirits. She cradles Demeter close, then places him carefully into the embers, not to harm, but to purify, to burn away his mortal frailties as one tempers metal. The myths describe this as a nightly rite, repeated under cover of darkness, where the fire doesn't scorch him, but envelops him in a warm glow, like a mother's hug turned elemental. Demeter watches intently, her face illuminated by the flames, whispering protections to keep the heat gentle, transformative rather than destructive. Demeter sleeps through it, his skin taking on a subtle radiance, growing stronger each night, inching toward godhood. The room fills with the scent of burning herbs. Demeter scatters mint and laurel into the fire, their aromas rising like prayers, masking any trace of the ritual from prying noses. It's a delicate balance, this secret work, like baking bread where timing is everything. Too long in the flames, and mortality clings, too short, and the gift fails. She tends the fire with a poker, stirring the coals to keep the heat even, her mind drifting to Persephone in the underworld shadows. Is her daughter safe? Does Hades treat her kindly? The questions fuel Demeter's focus, each night a step closer to making Demeter eternal, a quiet rebellion against the gods who stole her child. Metanira's palace sleeps unaware. The servant snores faint through the walls. The seas murmur a distant lullaby. Demeter retrieves Demeter from the fire before dawn, his body unharmed, his breath steady, and lays him back in the cradle. She smooths his blanket, her touch lingering, feeling a mother's affection bloom for this mortal boy. The myths linger on this tenderness, contrasting her divine power with human vulnerability, a bridge between worlds. Each ritual renews her hope, a small victory in her endless grief, like planting seeds in winter soil and trusting spring will come. But the nights blend into one another, the ritual a routine that soothes Demeter's aching heart. She varies it slightly, sometimes adding a sprig of poppy for dreams, other times chanting hymns to Hestia, goddess of the hearth, to bless the flames. Demephone thrives, growing faster, his eyes brighter, his cries stronger, hints of immortality taking root. Demeter smiles faintly in the firelight, a rare moment of peace amid her turmoil. The palace's stone walls hold her secret, the embers dying down as dawn approaches, leaving only ashes and the faint glow on the boy's skin. This immortal rite is the myth's hidden gem, a blend of magic and maternity that underscores Demeter's depth. She repeats it faithfully, night after night, her disguise holding as she plays nursemaid by day, ritualist by night. The fire pops softly, a companion in her solitude, while outside, the world turns without Persephone. Demeter's hands, stained with ambrosia, tremble slightly as she tucks Demephone in, her thoughts on the underworld's gates. How long can she keep this up before someone notices? The myths build suspense here, letting the ritual unfold like a slow-burning flame, promising revelation. As the embers cool, Demeter sits back, her mortal form weary, but her spirit unyielding. The ritual complete, she blows out the last light, plunging the room into darkness, softened by moonlight through the window. Demephone sleeps soundly, his future brighter because of her touch, a small act of creation in a time of loss. The palace stirs faintly with the first birdsong, and Demeter prepares for another day of pretense, her secret safe for now. The myths don't rush the discovery. They let the tension simmer, like coals waiting to ignite. Section 9. The hearth in Metanira's chamber crackles softly, its flames casting a warm, dancing light across the stone walls as Demeter continues her nightly ritual with Demephone. The infant lies peacefully in her arms, his skin anointed with ambrosia that gleams like dew on morning leaves, his tiny form ready for the purifying fire. Demeter whispers ancient incantations, her voice a low murmur blending with the fire's gentle pops as she places him carefully into the embers. The flames lick around him without harm, wrapping him in a cocoon of divine heat that burns away his mortal weaknesses, night after night, forging him toward immortality. She watches intently, her mortal disguise holding firm, her heart finding a sliver of solace in this act, a way to nurture in the midst of her endless grief for Persephone. But tonight, the palace isn't as silent as before. Metanira, restless in her bedchamber, stirred by a mother's intuition, or perhaps a faint cry she imagines, slips from her blankets and pads quietly through the halls. Her bare feet are soundless on the cool floors, her nightrobe whispering against the stone as she approaches the nursery door. The mainstream fact in the myths is that Metanira's interruption highlights the clash between divine intentions and human fears, a pivotal moment where mortal misunderstanding disrupts a goddess's plan. She peeks through the crack in the door, her eyes widening at the sight. The old nursemaid, whom she trusted with her son, holding Demephone over the fire, the flames engulfing him like a living shroud. Metanira's gasp shatters the quiet, her hand flying to her mouth, too late to stifle it. She bursts into the room, her face pale with horror, crying out, "What madness is this? You're burning my child." Her voice echoes sharply, a mortal's terror cutting through the sacred rite like a knife through silk. Demeter startles, pulling Demephone from the flames in a swift motion, the boy unharmed but now forever marked by the incomplete ritual, stronger than mortals, but not divine. The goddess's eyes flash with anger, her disguise cracking under the surge of emotion, like a dam breaking after too much rain. She sets Demephone down in his cradle, his cries now filling the room, and turns to face the queen, her form beginning to shimmer as the mortal veil slips away. A quirky tidbit from some ancient variants suggests Metanira grabbed a poker from the hearth in her panic, waving it like a makeshift weapon, as if a simple iron tool could fend off a goddess. Picture a queen in her nightgown, playing hero against the divine, a moment almost comical in its futility. Scholars still argue whether this interruption symbolizes humanity's fear of the unknown or a critique of divine secrecy in Greek society, with debates lingering over the ritual's true purpose in the texts. Demeter's anger boils over, her voice thundering despite her effort to contain it. "Foolish woman, you have ruined what could have been a gift beyond your dreams. I was making your son immortal, free from age and death, but your interference has sealed his fate as a mere mortal." Metanira falls to her knees, her face ashen, realization dawning like a cold dawn. She stammers apologies, her hands trembling as she reaches for Demephone, who quiets in her arms, his skin warm but no longer glowing with divine promise. The queen's mind races. This old woman is no simple nursemaid. The power radiating from her now is unmistakable, like the earth itself rising in fury. Demeter stands tall, her grey hair turning to golden waves, her tattered robes transforming into flowing garments embroidered with wheat sheaves and poppies. The room seems to expand with her presence, the fire flaring brighter as if feeding on her rage. "I am Demeter," she declares, her voice echoing with the weight of harvests and famines. "Goddess of the earth, and you have meddled in matters beyond your ken." The revelation hangs in the air, heavy as storm clouds. Metanira bowing low, her forehead touching the floor in supplication. She begs forgiveness, offering anything, gold, offerings, her own service, to appease the goddess. Demeter's anger softens slightly, her grief for Persephone tempering the outburst, but the damage is done. Demephone will live a long life, blessed with strength and wisdom, but death will claim him one day, a shadow of what could have been. The myths use this moment to bridge the divine and human, showing how close immortals come to sharing their gifts, only for fear to snatch them away. Demeter paces the room, her steps leaving faint trails of sprouting vines on the stone, a subtle display of her power that makes Metanira gasp anew. The queen summons the household quietly, not wanting to wake the king yet, and they gather in hushed awe as Demeter explains her presence. Not the full story of Persephone, but enough to command respect. "I sought refuge in your home while searching for what was taken from me," she says, her voice softening to a rumble like distant thunder. The servants whisper among themselves, eyes wide, realizing they've hosted a goddess unawares. Metanira, still kneeling, vows to make amends, her fear mingling with reverence. It's a turning point, the myth shifting from secret ritual to open divine interaction, like pulling back a curtain on a stage play. Demeter's revelation isn't just anger, it's laced with sorrow, her eyes misting as she glances at Demeter. Your son could have walked among gods, she murmurs, a quiet lament that echoes her loss of Persephone. The room falls silent, the fire dying down as if ashamed, leaving only the boy's soft breathing and Metanira's whispered pleas. The goddess composes herself, her form fully divine now, radiating a light that warms the chamber like sunlight on fertile soil. She demands no immediate punishment, but her presence commands change. Eleusis will never be the same, a town touched by the god's drama. This shocking discovery ripples outward, the myths letting it unfold with tension and release. Metanira rises slowly, her hands clasped in prayer, as Demeter outlines what must come next. The queen nods, her horror turning to devotion, a mortal caught in the web of divine fate. The night stretches on, the palace alive with whispers, as Demeter's true identity settles over them like a blanket of stars. Her anger fades to resolve, her thoughts turning once more to Persephone, the ritual's failure a stark reminder of her ongoing search. Section 10. The chamber in Eleusis' palace hangs heavy with tension, the air thick from the dying fire, and Metanira's stifled sobs as she cradles Demeter close. Demeter stands revealed in her full divine glory, her form towering now, her eyes like storm clouds over fertile plains, her robes flowing with patterns of golden wheat and blooming vines that seem to shift in the faint light. The queen, still on her knees, whispers pleas for mercy, her voice trembling like leaves in a gale, while servants peek from the doorway, their faces pale with awe and fear. Demeter's anger simmers, not a raging blaze but a deep, earth-shaking rumble, her grief for Persephone fueling the demand she's about to make. "You have thwarted my gift," she says, her tone steady but laced with the weight of lost harvests. "But you will atone. Build me a temple, grand and sacred, where mortals may honor me and seek my favor." The mainstream fact in the myths is that this temple at Eleusis becomes the center of the Eleusinian mysteries, secret rites celebrating Demeter and Persephone, drawing initiates from across Greece for centuries. Metanira nods fervently, her tears falling onto Demeter's blanket, vowing to rally the town at dawn. Demeter describes the temple in detail. It must rise on the hill overlooking the sea, its columns carved from marble veined like ripening grain, its altar adorned with sheaves of wheat and poppies, her sacred flowers. The structure should have inner chambers for rituals, veiled from prying eyes, where the faithful can glimpse the cycles of life and death. She speaks with authority, her words painting the vision so vividly that Metanira can almost see the finished edifice, its roof tiled in terracotta, its walls echoing with chants. A quirky tidbit from ancient sources hints that Demeter specified the temple include a hidden well. Fed by a spring, she would bless herself, where initiates could drink kikeon, the barley drink Metanira offered her, as part of the mysteries, turning a simple hospitality gesture into eternal symbolism. Imagine the queen's surprise, like realizing your homemade soup recipe is now a divine command. Scholars still argue whether this demand was Demeter's way to establish a lasting cult or a personal solace. a place to channel her sorrow into something enduring, with debates centering on archaeological finds at Eleusis that match the descriptions. Either way, it's a pivot from personal ritual to communal worship, Demeter transforming her pain into a legacy. Metanira rises slowly, calling for the king, Celeus, who stumbles in half asleep, his eyes widening at the goddess before him. He bows low, his voice steady despite the shock, promising the town's full effort. Laborers, stonecutters, offerings from every household. Demeter nods, her presence filling the room like sunlight breaking through clouds, and outlines the penance further. The people must dedicate the temple with festivals, dances mimicking the harvest cycle, songs praising her nurturing power. It's not punishment, but restoration, a way for mortals to align with the earth's rhythms, honoring the bond between mother and daughter that Hades shattered. The family listens rapt, Demephone quiet now, as if sensing the gravity, his future tied to this divine encounter. As dawn creeps in, painting the sky in soft grays, word spreads through Eleusis like wildfire through dry fields. Villagers gather in the courtyard, murmuring in hushed tones as Metanira relays Demeter's command. Fishermen set aside nets, farmers leave plows, women bundle herbs for initial offerings. Demeter stands among them, her form still divine but softened, her anger ebbing into quiet determination. She blesses the ground where the temple will rise, touching the soil with her hand, causing tiny sprouts to emerge, a sign of her favor if they obey. The people gasp, falling to their knees, their fear turning to devotion. It's a moment of unity, mortals and goddess bound by shared purpose, the temple, a bridge over the chasm of misunderstanding. Celeus organizes the work swiftly, assigning tasks. Quarry the marble from nearby hills. Carve friezes depicting Demeter's search. Build altars for libations of milk and honey. Demeter watches from the palace steps, her mind drifting to Persephone in the underworld's gloom. The temple will be her solace, a place to mourn and remember, its halls echoing with prayers that might reach her daughter. The myths emphasize this as a turning point, where Demeter's personal quest expands to include humanity, teaching them the mysteries of renewal amid loss. She instructs the priests to be on simple rites, washing hands in blessed water, offering first fruits, to prepare for deeper secrets she'll reveal later. The construction begins that day, hammers ringing against stone, carts rumbling with materials, the air buzzing with excited chatter. Demeter retreats to a shaded grove nearby, her divine form fading back to mortal guise for discretion, but her presence lingers like a warm breeze. Metanira visits her there, bringing bread and wine as apology, their conversation turning to motherhood's pains. Demeter shares fragments of her story, the meadow, the abduction, without naming Hades yet, her voice cracking like dry earth. The queen listens, her own loss averted with Demephone, offering comfort that touches the goddess deeply. It's a rare vulnerability, Demeter finding kinship in a mortal, like a queen confiding in a handmaid. As the sun climbs, the temple's foundation takes shape, a rectangular base aligned with the stars Demeter points out. She demands no gold or jewels, just honest stone and sincere hearts, a temple reflecting the earth's simplicity. The people work tirelessly, their songs praising Demeter, rising with the dust. This penance heals the rift, turning interruption into initiation, the myths weaving it as the birth of a cult that promises enlightenment to the faithful. Demeter's solace grows with each stone laid, a monument to her enduring love, even as her search for Persephone burns unchecked. By evening, the outline stands, walls rising like promises. Demeter blesses the workers, her touch making tools lighter, their labors fruitful. The town transforms, united under her gaze, the temple a beacon for her grief. She retires to the palace, Metanira by her side, planning the dedication. The myths let this unfold gradually, building toward revelation. Demeter's demand a step toward reclaiming power in a world that stole her child. The stars emerge, watching over Eleusis as the goddess dreams of Persephone, the temple her anchor in the storm. Section 11. The temple at Eleusis rises steadily under the laborers' hands, its marble columns gleaming in the sunlight as villagers haul stones and carve friezes depicting bountiful harvests. Demeter oversees the work from a shaded spot, her divine form veiled once more in mortal guise to avoid overwhelming the mortals, but her presence inspires them. Crops near the site sprout greener, tools seem lighter in their grips. Yet even as the structure takes shape, a monument to her demand and their penance, Demeter's heart remains unsettled, her thoughts fixed on Persephone's absence. The rituals and construction offer distraction, but the void gnaws at her, a mother's worry that no temple can fill. She wanders the hilltop at midday, her eyes lifting to the sky, where the sun chariot of Helios arcs high, its rays warming the earth she once nurtured so freely. Helios, the all-seeing sun god, drives his fiery steeds across the heavens, his gaze piercing every shadow, every hidden corner of the world below. From his vantage, no secret escapes. Wars, loves, betrayals all unfold beneath his unblinking eye. Demeter, desperate for answers beyond mortal whispers, calls out to him one cloudless afternoon, her voice carrying on the wind like a plea from the depths. Helios, who sees all, tell me of my daughter. Where has Persephone gone? The sun pauses in its path, or so it seems, as Helios reins in his chariot, his radiant form descending slightly, his voice booming yet compassionate, like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. He reveals the truth she's dreaded. Hades abducted Persephone, with Zeus's tacit approval, spiriting her to the underworld through a chasm in the Sicilian meadow. The mainstream fact in the myths is that Helios's revelation underscores his role as an omniscient witness in Greek lore, often called upon to confirm events hidden from others, emphasizing the interconnectedness of the gods. Demeter's face pales, her hands clenching into fists as the words sink in. Her own brother Zeus, complicit in this theft, handing Persephone over like a prize in some divine bargain. The grief crashes over her like a tidal wave, profound and all-consuming, her body trembling as tears fall, watering the earth at her feet where tiny sprouts wither instantly. Rage follows swiftly, a fire igniting in her chest, hotter than Helios's chariot flames. "How could Zeus betray me so?" she cries, her voice echoing across the hill, startling birds into flight. A quirky tidbit from lesser-known fragments suggests Helios hesitated at first, offering Demeter a sip from his golden cup, said to hold sunlight itself, to steady her before the news. like a cosmic bartender serving a stiff drink before dropping bad news. Imagine the sun god playing therapist, his radiant beard twitching as he weighs the family drama. Scholars still argue whether Helios's involvement implies his neutrality in Olympian politics or a subtle alliance with Demeter, with ongoing debates over his motivations in the surviving hymns. Either way, the truth unleashes Demeter's fury, her eyes blazing as she thanks Helios curtly, her mind racing with visions of confrontation. The sun god ascends once more, his chariot resuming its path, leaving Demeter alone with the shattering knowledge. Her profound grief morphs into a rage that shakes her core, a goddess's wrath capable of reshaping the world. She paces the unfinished temple grounds, her steps leaving scorched footprints in the grass, her tears salting the soil like a bad seasoning gone wrong. The villagers notice the change. Clouds gather unnaturally, the air grows heavy, but they continue their work, whispering prayers to appease her. Demeter's mind replays the abduction, Persephone's cries, Hades' dark chariot, Zeus's indifferent nod. It's a betrayal deeper than the underworld's chasms, family ties severed like harvested wheat. She vows vengeance, not with thunderbolts, but with her domain. The earth itself will suffer until her daughter returns. Helios's words echo in her ears as she retreats to the grove, her rage building like a storm on the horizon. She smashes a rock with her fist, sending pebbles flying, a small outburst that hints at the devastation to come. The myths capture this ignition point vividly, where knowledge turns sorrow into action. Demeter's emotions, a force as natural and unstoppable as the tides. She thinks of Persephone in Hades' cold halls, perhaps seated on a throne of shadows, her flowers wilted, her laughter silenced. The image fuels her fire, her grief profound enough to drown oceans, her rage hot enough to scorch fields. The sun dips lower, Helios's chariot fading into twilight. As Demeter composes herself, channeling her emotions into resolve, the temple will stand, but her true work begins now, pressuring Olympus, withdrawing her gifts from the earth. It's a calculated fury, like a chef pulling dishes from the menu until demands are met. The villagers sense the shift, offering extra libations at the altar site, their chants rising softly. Demeter accepts them absently, her mind on Zeus and Hades, plotting her next move. The revelation has changed everything. Her search no longer aimless, but directed, a mother's love weaponized. As night falls, stars prick the sky like distant eyes, Helios's domain yielding to the moon. Demeter sits by the unfinished walls, her rage simmering to a steady burn, her grief a deep well. She traces patterns in the dirt, symbols of cycles broken, vowing to make the gods feel her pain. The myths let this moment breathe, the ignition of profound emotions setting the stage for Earth's transformation. Demeter rises, her form casting long shadows, ready to unleash what Helios's truth has awakened. Section 12. Demeter stands on the hill overlooking Eleusis, the unfinished temple below her, a skeleton of marble and promise. But her eyes are fixed on the horizon where fields once golden now hint at yellowing edges. Helios's revelation burns in her mind like his chariot's flames, Hades' abduction, Zeus's complicity, Persephone trapped in shadows. The grief twists into a resolve as cold as underworld rivers, her hands clenching at her sides as she whispers a curse, not with thunder, but with withdrawal. If my daughter suffers in darkness, let the earth mirror her absence, she murmurs, her voice carried on the wind like falling leaves. She turns away from her nurturing role, pulling back the blessings that make soil fertile, seeds sprout, and harvests bountiful. The earth's pulse slows under her command, a deliberate famine spreading like ink through water. The mainstream fact in the myths is that Demeter's barren curse symbolizes the winter season's origin, a divine explanation for why the land lies dormant, tying her personal loss to natural cycles observed by ancient Greeks. Fields that once waved with wheat now stand still, stalks browning at the tips, leaves curling inward as if hiding from the sun. Rivers run shallower, their banks cracking, while orchards drop unripe fruit to the ground, rotting before they ripen. Mortals notice first in small ways, a farmer's plough turning up dry clods instead of rich loam, a shepherd's flock thinning from sparse grass. Whispers spread through villages. The goddess is angry, the earth mourns. Demeter watches from afar, her heart aching but unyielding, knowing this pain will force Olympus to act. A quirky tidbit from obscure hymn fragments suggests Demeter scattered withered poppies across the first barren field, their dried pods rattling like warnings, a personal signature on her curse that made farmers collect them as talismans against worse famine. Imagine villagers picking them up, puzzled, like finding expired coupons in a divine complaint box. Scholars still argue whether this act was symbolic of sleep and death in her mysteries or a literal extension of her floral affinity, with debates fueled by archaeological finds of poppy motifs at Eleusis. Either way, the curse deepens, halting growth entirely. No new buds, no fresh greens, the land locked in a perpetual autumn sliding toward desolation. The famine spreads wide, touching every corner of Greece and beyond. In Athens, markets empty, bread loaves shrink, families ration olives and barley porridge. Children cry from hunger, their bellies hollow, while elders speak of old tales where gods withheld favor for lesser slights. Kings send envoys to oracles, seeking answers, but the smoke from sacrificial fires rises thin, unanswered. Demeter's withdrawal is total. She ignores altars piled with desperate offerings, her power turned inward, a mother's strike against the cosmos. Rivers dry to trickles, lakes recede, exposing mud-cracked beds where fish gasp their last. Animals weaken, herds thinning as pastures turn to dust bowls, the air heavy with the scent of decay rather than bloom. In Eleusis, the people feel it keenly, their new devotion tested as crops fail around the rising temple. Metanira prays daily at the altar, offering what little they have, dried figs, diluted wine, begging Demeter to relent. The goddess, still among them in disguise, hears but does not soften. Her curse is a message to Zeus, a way to make the king of gods feel the mortal suffering echo his betrayal. She walks barren paths, her feet leaving no prints, as if the earth rejects even her touch now. The myths portray this as a calculated escalation, Demeter's rage manifesting not in violence, but in absence, a passive force more devastating than storms. Wildlife suffers too. Deer roam thinner forests. Birds nest in leafless trees, their songs fading to weak chirps. Fishermen haul empty nets from sterile seas, blaming the gods' wrath. Tales spread of ghosts rising from cracked ground, hungry spirits mirroring the living's plight. Demeter's profound sorrow fuels it all, her tears salting the soil further, preventing even weeds from taking root. She recalls Persephone's laughter in blooming meadows, now silenced, and hardens her resolve. The curse halts life's gentle cycle, turning abundance to scarcity, a mirror to her empty arms. Olympus stirs faintly, gods noticing the shift. Hermes reports thinner offerings, Apollo's oracles clogged with pleas. But Zeus delays, his thunder rumbling distantly, unwilling to confront his sister's fury. Demeter knows this. Her barren earth is a siege, starving the divine of mortal worship until action comes. In remote villages, shamans dance futile reigns, their drums echoing hollowly, while families share last stores, eyes hollow with fear. The land becomes a canvas of browns and greys, colors of mourning, as if painted by Demeter's hand. The halting of growth extends to subtle realms. Vines twist but bear no grapes. Bees abandon hives for lack of nectar, the air still without pollen's drift. Mortals adapt grimly, grinding acorns for flour, boiling roots for soup, their bodies weakening as winter's chill creeps in unnaturally early. Demeter observes from hilltops, her rage a steady burn, grief a deep root. The myths emphasize the widespread impact, showing how one goddess's pain ripples to all, a lesson in interconnected fates. She visits sacred groves, now leafless, whispering apologies to the dryads who shiver in bark. But her curse stands firm. As months drag, the famine bites deeper, cities rationing water from dwindling wells, kings hoarding granaries, while commoners starve. Demeter's withdrawal is complete, her blessings locked away like treasures in a vault, awaiting Persephone's return. The earth lies barren, a silent protest echoing through silent fields, halting life's gentle pulse. The gods above feel the pressure, mortals below endure, and Demeter waits, her curse a weapon forged from love's sharp edge. Section 30. Olympus shimmers high above the barren earth, its golden halls echoing with the murmurs of gods as Zeus paces his throne room, his thunderbolt gripped tightly in one hand. The king of the gods, with his flowing beard and eyes like storm clouds, feels the ripple of Demeter's curse reaching even here. Offerings dwindle at altars, prayers turn desperate, the balance of the world tilting under his sister's wrath. Mortals starve below, their cries rising like smoke from empty hearths, and Zeus knows he can no longer ignore it. His complicity in Persephone's abduction weighs on him now, a decision made lightly in the heat of divine politics. But the famine threatens everything. He summons Iris, the rainbow messenger, her wings iridescent as she bows before him, and commands her to fly to Demeter with an urgent plea: end the curse, return to her duties, for the sake of all. Iris descends in an arc of colors, landing softly near Eleusis, where Demeter oversees the temple's near completion, its columns now crowned with carvings of wheat and pomegranates. The messenger relays Zeus's words, her voice melodic yet firm, promising honors and gifts if Demeter relents. But Demeter's eyes harden, her form radiating the chill of frozen fields. No gifts can replace my daughter, she retorts, her tone cutting like frost on vines. Iris returns empty-handed, her rainbow fading as she reports the refusal. leaving Zeus to thunder in frustration, his bolts cracking the sky but doing nothing to fill empty bellies below. The mainstream fact in the myths is that Zeus's intervention highlights his role as arbiter among gods, stepping in when divine disputes threaten mortal existence, a reflection of Greek views on cosmic order. He tries again, sending Hermes, the swift-footed messenger with his winged sandals and caduceus staff, to negotiate directly. Hermes zips down to earth, his form blurring like wind through leaves, finding Demeter in the temple's inner sanctum, where she initiates the first mysteries, rites of planting and renewal, veiled in secrecy. He bows low, his voice smooth as olive oil, relaying Zeus's command. Persephone must return, the famine end, balance restored. Demeter listens, her grief etched deep, but shakes her head. Not without my daughter, whole and free, she insists, her words echoing off the marble walls. Hermes, ever the diplomat, suggests compromise, but Demeter's rage flares anew, her curse intensifying. Fields crack wider, rivers dry to dust, animals collapse in pastures. The gods on Olympus grow uneasy. Apollo's lyre sounds hollow. Athena's owls hoot warnings. Even Ares grumbles about weakened warriors. Zeus paces faster, his throne room filled with the scent of ozone from suppressed thunder. Realizing his sister's pain runs deeper than he anticipated, he dispatches more messengers. First Hebe with cups of nectar, then Ganymede bearing ambrosia. But each returns rebuffed, Demeter's resolve unyielding as ancient oaks. A quirky tidbit from variant tales claims Zeus once sent a flock of doves carrying olive branches as a peace offering, only for Demeter to scatter them with a wave, turning the branches to withered twigs, a symbolic snub that left the birds cooing in confusion. Picture the king of gods resorting to avian diplomacy, like emailing pigeons in a cosmic spat. Scholars still argue whether these repeated negotiations reflect actual ritual practices in Greek festivals or allegorical layers on familial reconciliation, with no consensus in the hymns. Either way, the mortal crisis escalates. Cities ration last stores, kings sacrifice herds in vain, famines breeding unrest that threatens uprisings against the gods themselves. Zeus convenes the Olympians in council, the hall alive with divine presences. Poseidon with his trident dripping sea foam, Hera at Zeus's side with her peacock eyes watchful. They debate amid marble pillars, voices rising like winds in a storm. Demeter's pain endangers all, Athena argues, her helmet gleaming. Ares snorts, let Hades fight for his bride. But Zeus silences them, his voice booming. The earth dies. We must act. He sends Hermes again, this time to the underworld, to bargain with Hades directly. The messenger descends through shadowed chasms, his sandals whispering over the river Styx, where Charon ferries silent shades. Hades' realm unfolds in eerie quiet, caverns lit by glowing fungi, rivers of forgetfulness murmuring. Persephone seated beside her husband on a throne of obsidian, her face pale but composed. Hermes relays Zeus's command, return Persephone to end the famine. Hades, his dark eyes thoughtful, strokes his beard, knowing the crisis above but reluctant to lose his queen. Persephone listens, her hands twisting a wilted flower, torn between worlds. The negotiation drags, Hermes shuttling between realms like a divine courier service, proposals flying, partial returns, shared custody, promises of honors. Zeus grows impatient, his thunder rumbling warnings that shake the underworld's foundations, dust sifting from cavern ceilings. Hades concedes slightly, but clings to a loophole. Persephone ate pomegranate seeds in his realm, binding her to him by ancient laws. The back and forth intensifies, messengers weaving between sky, earth, and depths, each trip carrying pleas and counteroffers. Demeter senses the stirrings, her curse holding firm, but a flicker of hope ignites. Perhaps Zeus will yield. Mortals suffer meanwhile, villages emptying as people flee to cities, begging at temples. The myths build this tension masterfully. Zeus's urgency a counterpoint to Demeter's steadfast grief. Negotiations a divine tug-of-war with the earth as rope. Hermes returns exhausted, his wings drooping, reporting Hades' terms. Persephone divides her time, seasons split between light and shadow. Zeus weighs it, his counsel murmuring approval. Balance restored, famine averted. He sends the final message to Demeter: accept or risk eternal barrenness. She pauses in the temple, initiates around her holding breath, her rage cooling to reluctant acceptance. The crisis peaks, gods and mortals hanging on the edge, Zeus's intervention a thread pulling the knot loose. The barren earth waits, cracked and silent, for the compromise to take hold. Section 14. The underworld's caverns glow faintly with the light of bioluminescent fungi, casting eerie shadows across Hades' palace, where Persephone sits on a throne of polished obsidian, her hands clasped around a wilted narcissus. Her chiton, once bright with meadow hues, now carries the dust of the underworld, its hem frayed from pacing cold stone floors. Hades stands beside her, his dark eyes softer now, torn between love and the weight of Zeus's command delivered by Hermes, who lingers nearby, his winged sandals tapping impatiently. The compromise hangs in the air, like the scent of the pomegranate seeds Persephone ate, 6 ruby-red jewels that bind her to this shadowed realm by ancient law, 1 month below for each seed consumed. Zeus's decree is clear. She must divide her time, half the year with Hades, half with Demeter, a balance to end the famine above and restore the earth's pulse. The mainstream fact in the myths is that Persephone's consumption of the pomegranate seeds creates the seasonal cycle, a Greek explanation for why spring and summer bloom while autumn and winter fade, tying her dual role as queen of the underworld and maiden of spring to nature's rhythm. Hades explains the terms to her, his voice low, like the rumble of underground rivers, detailing how she'll return to the sunlight, but always come back to him. Persephone listens, her expression a mix of resignation and quiet strength, her fingers tightening around the flower as if clutching a piece of the world above. The seeds were no accident, she admits. She ate them in a moment of hunger, or perhaps curiosity, their tart juice staining her lips like a contract signed in silence. A quirky tidbit from lesser-known variants suggests the pomegranate wasn't just food, but a ritual gift offered by Hades' gardener, a shade who tended eerie orchards of glowing fruit, making Persephone's choice feel like accepting a cosmic wedding vow. Imagine biting into a fruit that's basically an engagement ring with seeds. Scholars still argue whether this act was Persephone's agency asserting itself, or a trick by Hades, with debates swirling around whether the myths portray her as victim or co-ruler. No clear answer in the fragmented hymns. Either way, the seeds lock her fate, splitting her life between light and shadow, her heart torn like the earth she'll soon renew. Hermes, ever the mediator, outlines the deal. 6 months above with Demeter, 6 below with Hades, a rhythm to mirror the seasons. Persephone nods, her eyes distant, picturing her mother's fields, the violets and poppies she left behind, now wilted under Demeter's curse. She rises, her steps echoing in the vast hall, and agrees, her voice steady, but laced with longing. Hades offers her a cloak, woven from underworld mist, its threads shimmering like moonlight on water, to wear when she returns. It's a gesture of love, but also possession, a reminder she's his queen, even when she walks in sunlight. Persephone accepts it, draping it over her shoulders, its cool weight a contrast to the warm air of her mother's world. The journey upward begins, Hermes leading the way through winding caverns, past the river Styx where Charon's boat sways silently, shades watching with hollow eyes. Persephone glances back at Hades, his figure fading into shadow, a pang of unexpected warmth for the god who, despite his theft, showed her kindness in his lonely realm. The ascent is slow, the air growing lighter, the scent of minerals giving way to faint traces of grass and sea. She steps into sunlight at last, emerging in a Sicilian meadow, the same one where Hades took her, now barren under Demeter's wrath. The earth feels brittle under her feet, cracked like old leather, but her presence stirs a faint green spark, blades of grass pushing through as if sensing her return. Above, Demeter waits near Eleusis, her heart leaping as she senses her daughter's approach, the temple's altars freshly adorned with wheat sheaves in hope. The reunion looms, but Persephone knows it's not whole. 6 months of sunlight, then back to shadows. She walks toward her mother, Hermes at her side, the cloak trailing like a reminder of her dual life. The myths linger on this moment, her partial freedom a delicate balance, a compromise that heals the earth but leaves her divided. Mortals will soon feel relief, fields blooming again. But Persephone's heart carries both worlds, a queen in darkness and a maiden in light. The pomegranate's power lingers in her, its seeds a quiet chain. She recalls their taste, sharp and sweet, eaten in a moment of weakness or defiance in Hades' garden. Did she choose this fate, or was it chosen for her? The myths don't say, leaving her agency a mystery, like a riddle whispered in the dark. As she nears Demeter, the air warms, a faint breeze carrying the scent of new blooms. The famine will lift, but the seasons are born from this bargain. Growth when she's above, decay when she descends. Persephone's steps are steady, her face composed, but her eyes hold the underworld's shadows, a queen learning to navigate 2 realms. The myths paint this compromise as both resolution and tension. Persephone's freedom partial, but enough to restore balance. She adjusts the cloak, its mist-like threads catching sunlight, and prepares to meet her mother, knowing their joy will be tempered by the ticking months. Hermes hums softly, a nervous habit, as they approach Eleusis, the temple gleaming like a beacon. The earth stirs faintly, sensing its maiden's return, ready to bloom under Demeter's renewed touch. Persephone's dual life begins here, a rhythm set by seeds and love, binding her to both worlds forever. Section 15. The Sicilian meadow stirs softly under Persephone's footsteps as she emerges from the underworld's shadow, her mist-woven cloak trailing like a fading dream, the faint scent of pomegranates clinging to her skin. Demeter stands waiting near Eleusis, her divine form radiant with golden wheat patterns shimmering on her robes, her eyes scanning the horizon where the earth meets the sea. The moment she sees her daughter, her breath catches, like a seed bursting through soil after endless winter. She runs, her sandals kicking up dust, arms outstretched, and pulls Persephone into an embrace that feels like sunlight flooding a barren field. The reunion is a burst of warmth, the air alive with the scent of blooming violets and poppies, as if the earth itself exhales in relief. Persephone's face, pale from months below, softens in her mother's arms, though her eyes hold a flicker of the underworld's shadows, a queen's poise blending with the maiden's joy. The mainstream fact in the myths is that Demeter and Persephone's reunion marks the origin of the seasons, a Greek explanation for nature's cycle of growth and decay, tied to Persephone's split time between earth and underworld. As mother and daughter cling to each other, the barren fields respond. Green shoots pierce cracked soil, vines twist upward bearing buds, rivers swell with clear water. Mortals in nearby villages pause, their hunger easing as granaries fill with grain, as if Demeter's joy unlocks the earth's bounty. She strokes Persephone's hair, weaving fresh flowers into it, her laughter mingling with tears. "You're here, my light," she whispers, her voice trembling like spring rain. Persephone nods, her cloak slipping to reveal a chiton, now embroidered with both wheat and pomegranate seeds, a symbol of her dual life. A quirky tidbit from obscure variants suggests Demeter gifted Persephone a crown of braided barley during this reunion, each stalk enchanted to glow faintly at night. A mother's attempt to keep her daughter visible even in darkness, like a divine GPS tracker. Imagine Persephone wearing it, half smiling at the fuss, a queen humoring her mum's overprotective streak. Scholars still argue whether this reunion scene reflects ancient harvest festivals or a deeper allegory for life cycles of loss and renewal, with debates centered on ritual artifacts found at Eleusis. Either way, the joy is tempered. Demeter knows Persephone must return to Hades for 6 months, her time above limited by those fateful seeds. The seasons now a rhythm of presence and absence. The earth transforms swiftly under their touch. In Eleusis, the temple shines, its altars piled with offerings, figs, olives, honey cakes, as villagers celebrate the end of famine. Demeter teaches them new rites, the Eleusinian mysteries, where initiates mimic the cycle of sowing and reaping, learning secrets of life's continuity through Persephone's journey. The meadows bloom wildly, grasses swaying, bees buzzing in revived hives, the air thick with pollen and promise. Persephone walks beside her mother, her steps lighter now, pointing out a crocus that mirrors one she saw in Hades' garden. "It wasn't all dark," she admits softly, her voice hinting at a bond with Hades, a complexity Demeter struggles to accept. Like a parent meeting their child's questionable partner, the seasons take shape, As Persephone's time above unfolds, spring bursts forth with her arrival, flowers unfurling, trees heavy with blossoms. Demeter's joy made manifest. Summer follows, fields ripening under their shared care, wheat heads bowing like grateful subjects. But as autumn nears, a chill creeps in, leaves browning, a reminder of Persephone's descent. Demeter's sorrow returns, subdued but present, her hands lingering on her daughters as they tend the last harvests. The myths weave this rhythm into eternity, each season a heartbeat of their bond. Growth when together, decay when apart. Mortals adapt, planting in spring, reaping in summer, storing for winter's lean months. Their lives now tied to this divine dance. Persephone speaks of the underworld sparingly, mentioning glowing orchards and shades who bow to her, a queen's life she's learning to navigate. Demeter listens, her heart aching but proud, seeing her daughter's strength, a maiden grown into something more. The temple becomes a hub, initiates, flocking to learn mysteries that promise hope beyond death, inspired by Persephone's return. The earth's gentle cycle, growth, harvest, decay, renewal, mirrors their story, a balance forged from pain and love. Demeter plants a final poppy field, its red petals a nod to Persephone's time below, a bittersweet marker of their shared fate. As autumn looms, Persephone prepares to descend, her cloak ready, her crown glowing faintly. Demeter holds her close, whispering blessings, knowing the earth will mourn with her. The myths end here, not with closure, but with rhythm, a cycle that comforts as much as it aches. The seasons turn, eternal, binding mother and daughter to the world's pulse, their story whispered in every sprouting seed and falling leaf. Wind down now, as the meadow fades and the stars above Eleusis twinkle softly. Let the gentle rhythm of Demeter and Persephone's story cradle you. Picture the earth breathing slowly, fields resting under a blanket of moonlight, each blade of grass whispering tales of spring's return. The temple stands silent, its altars glowing with the last embers of offerings, the air sweet with honey and barley. Demeter sits by a quiet stream, her fingers trailing in the water, feeling the pulse of seasons that carry her daughter's name. Persephone, half in shadow, half in light, smiles faintly, her crown of barley catching the starlight, a promise of reunion when winter fades. Close your eyes. Let the weight of the day slip away, like leaves drifting on a gentle breeze. The myths don't rush. They unfold like seasons, slow and certain, inviting you to rest in their cycle. Feel the coolness of the earth beneath you, the soft hum of night creatures, the distant murmur of a river that knows no hurry. Demeter's love, Persephone's journey, they linger in the quiet, a reminder that even in loss, there's renewal, a bloom waiting under frost. Let your breath slow, matching the earth's steady rhythm, each inhale a seed, each exhale a harvest. Sleep comes softly now, carried on the scent of poppies and the whisper of ancient groves. The stars watch over you, as they did over Eleusis, promising light after every darkness. Drift into dreams where fields bloom eternal, where mother and daughter walk hand in hand, their story a lullaby for your rest. Good night, sweet traveler. Let the seasons carry you gently,